We have almost the entire roadmap from Microsoft leading up until the next generation of consoles in 2028, and to say I'm concerned from a physical collector point of view would be an understatement. So I'm not going to go through every single slide here because a lot of it to me anyway is largely irrelevant because I want to talk about physical discs. So this is the journey has already started. This is the leak that came out a week or so ago from Microsoft. Of course, they don't want any of this information shared, but it's out there now, so it's tough. Now, it's not set in stone by any stretch of the imagination. A lot of this stuff will probably have changed, and now a lot of it has come out. It probably will be changed based on feedback and because they want to try and keep people guessing. But you can see that the line comes down on launch at the end of 2028. That is the launch of the new console. And you can see that even back at the end of 2022 is when they started the concept and pre-production stage of these launch titles. And game production started in and around this time, which is mad to think that games that are not due to come out for another 5 years are now being designed. It takes that long to get these games from the concept to pre-production to optimization and then to being released. It's crazy how much effort goes into these games. So when I do CEX videos where I'm going in and going, oh, this game was £1, that's crazy when you think you can buy a video game that took nearly 10 years to develop for £1. And people have then got the audacity to sit there and say, well, I think £2 is too much for that game. Are you mad? Like back then, it would have taken 8 years to develop this game. £2 for a game is an absolutely insane price to be paying for a video game. It's just mad. Anyway, if I go to this screen, which is where we're going to spend most of our time here, you'll see that this is the Xbox Series X refresh console. I'm sure we've all seen it at this point. It's a bin, right? And that's fine because the other one was a fridge. So at least we're getting, is that an upgrade? I don't know. But the things to take away from this isn't that it's a new design. It's not that it's the same price. It's not that it has a new controller to go with it, which looks kind of interesting. The biggest takeaway from me personally, and you know where I'm going with this, there's no disk drive. Now, of course, we don't have all the information. For all I know, that they're going to release an external disk drive that plugs into that USB-C slot at the front and everyone's happy. However, I don't think that's going to be the case because back, and I'm going way back now, back when the original Xbox One was released at E3, which was absolutely awful from Microsoft's point of view, they came out, barely talked about games. They were more focused on TV, which no one cares about, of course.
Xbox, watch TV. TV. Anybody?
And the other bombshell was that you weren't going to be able to play pre-owned games on your new system. Once you buy a game, that's it. You can't sell it. No one else can play it. The disc is registered to your console with some sort of unique chain of numbers, and that was the end of it.
This is how you share your games on PS4.
Thanks.
This was met with outrage, and rightfully so. But the one thing that people missed from this, which is the one thing that I took away and I was really excited by, but then they scrapped it because everyone was up in arms, was the fact that you were able to console share essentially with a large number of people. Now, I forget how many it was. It may have even been up to 16 if memory serves. But let's just say it was you and 3 other people. 4 people were able to use your own machines, but they're all linked. The accounts are linked essentially. So if I buy a game, 3 of my other friends can play that game even at the same time. If I'm playing it, I'm on level 3, someone else can just fire it up and start playing. It won't affect my game. It's essentially like having 4 different copies of the game, but I've only bought it once. Now, why is that a good thing? Well, if you share that price between 4 of you, instead of paying 100% of the game, you are now only paying, yes, you've guessed it, 25% of the game. And if you do that for every release, you are going to save a lot of money. Nobody cared. Nobody looked at it. Nobody wanted to know, right? I can't buy and sell my games. That's it. I'm out. My money's going to Sony. And fine. It made sense. I get it. Microsoft didn't do themselves any favors by presenting it the way that they did. They could have done it much better than they did. But even then, over 10 years ago, Microsoft wanted to push digital. That's what they were going for, which was a bit of a pain for a physical collector. But then I kind of wasn't, so it didn't really make that much difference to me. I was just thinking of saving money at the time, and I thought that was phenomenal. And then they scrapped it like a week later. But then with the new consoles, when the Series X and S came along, I think it took a lot of people by surprise. Not many people expected to like the Series S, but they did. It's a fantastic price point. Game Pass is getting bigger and better with every day that passes, and now it's one of those where I think a lot of people would probably plump for the Series S over the X because the price is so good, and most people now will live on Game Pass if you're playing on a Microsoft machine. And that brings us to Brooklyn, the Xbox Series X refresh console. The one thing that I take away from this, it's not the controller, it's not the USB-C port, it's not this, that and the other, it's that there's no disk drive here. They don't talk about an external disk drive, although that is still a possibility, so take that with a pinch of salt. But this is the direction that they're going, and I feel like this is not the start of it, because they started way back then, 10 years ago. This is the next step in Microsoft's evolution to eradicate the disk drive for their launch of their brand new next-gen console in 2028. Now, we don't know that this is set in stone. I don't know that this is certain. They've not mentioned anything, and why would they? Because this is all a ploy from them. So they're going to release this at the back end of next year. We already have the release dates, we already have the price. We know everything there is to know about this console because it's literally there on the screen. It tells me what Wi-Fi it has, what PSU power it has, what it's made out of. We know all of it. They will give us 2-3 years maybe before they announce what the next gen of console is going to be, but in that 2 or 3 years people will climatize to not having a disk drive. A lot of people will go and buy this. Those people who need to be day one adopters, you know, when the new iPhone comes out and people go and buy it and they don't even know why they're doing it, well, people will do that for this console. I kind of want it, and I don't even know why. Microsoft in the background are working very, very hard to acquire new properties for their Game Pass, of course, the Activision, which is where all this stemmed from, really, trying to acquire Activision to get everything like Call of Duty's onto Game Pass. That's how we have this, essentially. But eventually, I think in 2 or 3 years' time, they'll have so much on Game Pass that not many people will care about physical discs unless you are a physical collector. So my concern here is that this is going to condition many to not care about the disk drive. And then if we go to the other slide, which is this one right here that shows that the launch of the console is going to come out in 2028, when that happens, no disk drive, one console for everyone's needs, one power, no difference in graphics between the two machines anymore, and that's what they're going to market it as, and it won't have a disk drive, and many people won't care. They won't even notice. And sure, I know many of you might be thinking, no, it won't happen, it can't happen. Your PC, if you have one, and if you don't have one, PC gamers, how many times a year do you go and buy a new game that is a physical disc? I can tell you, without even knowing who you are, 0. That's how many discs you have for your PC that were released in the last, 5-10 years? Because it's all done digitally and no one bats an eyelid. That's just how it is. Games are cheaper, they go on sale far more often, and there is one service, Steam. I mean, okay, there are, Epic and all the rest of it that come along with it, but Steam is the main one, and you can download nearly anything and everything from Steam, the back catalogue all the way up until the new releases, and it's just super convenient. Microsoft, of course, have a bit of a history when it comes to PCs, so they'll have seen this and go, look, we've got Game Pass, it's lucrative, it makes us a lot of money, we don't really make that much money off discs, let's move away from it, let's turn everything digital, and let's just get rid of that side of things, because it's just a headache we don't need. People will climatize to this, they'll get used to it, they'll enjoy it, they already do with PCs, so why not? And that's exactly what I think is happening. And as a physical collector, that is very concerning, because not only is it going to mean that we can't buy Xbox discs anymore, is that going to leak over to Sony? Are Sony then going to go, do you know what, they've got the right idea here, we don't have Game Pass, but we can start pushing our service, we can start trying to make that a bit better, maybe we move into digital. I'll be surprised if Sony are actually planning to do that for the back end of 2028 with the next gen, but it is definitely possible. Now when it comes to Nintendo, I don't think they're going to do that. I think they've got a good thing going there with the Switch and little cartridges and things like that, and I think the people who buy Nintendo machines like physical things, they like the collector's editions and all the fuzzy family friendly stuff that comes along with just loving Nintendo in general. And that's not me knocking it, by the way, because I am kind of one of those people, so we'll just put them over into the corner. I think they're a little bit of an exception to this, but when it comes to Sony and Microsoft have already shown us that that's exactly what they're going to do. Are Sony going to follow suit? Because if they do, For me, that's a bit of a, I mean, not a bit, it is a massive red flag. It means that your physical collections are likely to end in this generation. You know, you won't be able to buy discs for the next gen because they won't be releasing them. What's the point of releasing a disc when you don't have a disc drive? Take all this with a pinch of salt, of course, because this is all leaked information and it's not all finalized. Things are going to change in the next 5 years. Who knows what's going to happen, right? But just as an early speculative guess, if you will, I think that when 2028 comes around, Xbox will release their new machine with no disc drive and there'll only be one variant. Maybe there'll be different colors of that variant, but they won't be two, a digital and a physical. That's the way I see it. It'll be bad news bears for many, but I can kind of understand why they're doing it. Leave your thoughts in the comments. If you want to check out another video from me, you can click here, and until the next time, goodbye.